Let's try a thought experiment. Imagine for a second that your entire life was utterly and completely destroyed. You wake up one morning and find yourself standing within a pile of rubble. Would you rebuild, or would you simply move on? In today's episode of The Sidebar, we are looking at a blog post from July of 2024 by artist and explorer Jeremy Brunansky. He provides a travelogue filled with unbelievable achievement. The city of Warsaw, Poland, was almost completely destroyed by Nazi Germany during World War II. Today, it's almost impossible to tell. The Polish people rebuilt their city with incredible pride and heart. Now, it's booming economy and has an exciting neon-filled nightlife. By the end of today's episode, perhaps you'll find a bit of the Polish neon phoenix in your own life. Grab your coffee, tea, or wine. It's time for The Sidebar.
Imagine stepping off a train right into the heart of Eastern Europe, and you're just, you're ready to dive headfirst into a capital city that's basically legendary for its neon-soaked nightlife.
Oh yeah, the underground bars, the whole social fabric that's practically woven from high-proof vodka.
Exactly. So you navigate the cobblestones, you find your hostel, you walk right up to the front desk, and the attendant just looks you dead in the eye and says, "Well," they say, "welcome, but just so you know, we have a strict curfew, and this is a completely alcohol-free building."
Which is, that's the absolute last thing you expect.
Right. It just completely shatters every single stereotype you brought with you in your suitcase. And that collision between what you expect a place to be and what it actually demands of you, that's exactly what we are exploring today.
And it's such a fascinating collision. It really is. Welcome to the deep dive. I am just thrilled you are joining us because today's mission is about so much more than just, a pin on a map. We are looking at resilience, cultural immersion, and honestly, what happens when you let go of your tightly gripped expectations.
Which, let's be honest, is often the hardest thing for any of us to do. We love our routines, we want the app to work, we want the language to make sense, and we basically just want the world to conform to our itinerary.
Totally. We want control.
Exactly. But when you step into a city with these deep, overlapping scars of history, the itinerary is usually the very first casualty.
It really is. And we have an incredibly rich source text guiding us today. It's a travel essay titled Warsaw, Poland Part 4, and it's by a writer named Jeremy Brunansky. And the reason this piece is so compelling isn't just the destination, but the specific lens Jeremy brings to the journey.
Right, because of his background. Yeah, exactly. By day, he is an AI professional, so he works in this realm of logic, risk management, strict governance, but he also carries a 40-year background in the performing arts and filmmaking.
And that duality is just crucial for understanding his perspective here. You have a mind that is highly trained to spot patterns, optimize systems, and manage risk. But it's operating simultaneously with the hyper-observant, deeply empathetic eye of a storyteller.
It's such a unique combo.
It really is. When he walks down the street, he isn't just looking at the logistics of, getting from point A to point B. He's looking at the staging. He's looking at the character motivations of the people around him and those historical echoes in the architecture.
So to be clear with you listening, our goal today is not to just scroll through a tourist's vacation photos. We are going to walk methodically alongside Jeremy as he uncovers the beating heart of Warsaw.
Which involves a lot of unexpected twists.
Oh, absolutely. We'll look at how he dodges a psychological hustle on a train, how he navigates these social customs that would make most Americans completely freeze up, and how he stands in the shadows of post-communist history. Ultimately, the objective is to understand how a massive city and a solo traveler can completely reinvent themselves.
Okay, let's unpack this. And we're starting with the simple, yet surprisingly absurd act of just trying to leave Germany.
Right, it begins in Berlin. And it is basically the perfect setup for a lesson in letting go of control.
Seriously,
Yeah.
because before Jeremy can even experience the rebirth of Warsaw, he has to actually get there. It's the morning of his departure. He's standing in Berlin Hauptbahnhof, which is this massive, sweeping, multi-level central station.
Very intimidating space.
It's huge. And he pulls out his phone to buy a required seat reservation on the railway app, but the app is glitching out. It simply will not work.
Which for a professional who works in AI and digital systems is just a wonderfully ironic hurdle to clear right out of the gate.
Right.
The technology literally fails him. But he doesn't panic, which is the crazy part. He just goes down to the physical ticket center in the station. And this initiates what we can really only call the paradox of the ticket. I want you to picture this scene. He walks in, pulls a paper queue number, and waits on a couch until his number flashes on a screen.
Very analog.
Super analog. He walks up to the counter. The agent speaks almost no English, and his German is practically non-existent. Out comes the phone again, this time for Google Translate. They spend several minutes just passing the glowing screen back and forth over the counter.
Like a digital game of telephone.
Exactly. And through this, they arrive at a conclusion that fundamentally defies logic. He has successfully purchased a ticket for the train, but he is informed that there are absolutely no seats available.
Let's just pause and think about what that actually means. I mean, Germany is globally stereotyped for its flawless mechanical efficiency.
Oh, totally. The trains run on a synchronized schedule, the engineering is precise, the rules are the rules.
Right. But here the system presents this blatant contradiction.
I couldn't wrap my head around it when I read it. It's like buying a ticket to a major concert, driving to the arena, walking up to the box office, and the attendant says, "Congratulations, your ticket is valid. However, the venue has no floor, no seats, and no standing room. Have a great show."
It's completely nonsensical from that perspective.
Right. How does a highly efficient transit system sell space that does not exist?
I gotta say, I would be demanding to speak to a manager. I would just assume I was being scammed by the railway.
See, but your reaction is the standard consumer-driven response. You paid for service, so you expect a specific, guaranteed physical space.
Obviously.
But European train systems often operate on a slightly different philosophy of capacity. There's the assigned seating, and then there is the chaotic, unreserved reality of the dining cars, the corridors, and the spaces in between.
I see.
Yeah, the ticket agent knows the train physically exists. She knows the doors will open, therefore you can get on it. But the uncertainty of that, I mean, if I'm Jeremy looking at a 5.5-hour international train ride, the anxiety of not having a designated place to put my bag would just ruin the morning.
And that is exactly where his background in leadership and adaptability really takes the wheel. A rigid traveler breaks down when the itinerary breaks. But Jeremy, he just accepts the paradox.
He really does. The ticket lady prints a piece of paper, scribbles on it with a pen, and in very broken English says, "Get on train, show conductor, upstairs to platform, enjoy Warsaw."
It's basically a handwritten hall pass from the universe.
That's exactly what it is. And he just goes with the flow. He recognizes that the system has morphed from a digital guarantee into, well, a human suggestion. So he grabs some water, a protein bar, and some almonds from a station market, and just boards a train where his seat exists only in theory.
And because he has no seat, he just wanders into the food car and claims a table, which leads to this tiny detail in his essay that I actually found incredibly telling.
Oh, the coffee order.
Yes. He sits down, and the train chef comes over. Jeremy decides to test out a phrase he has been practicing. He says, "Dzień dobry. Kawę dusio."
Yeah.
Dziękuję. Good day. A big black coffee. Thank you.
A polite, functional attempt to bridge the cultural gap right immediately.
Exactly. But it's what happens next that caught my attention. The chef returns, and he doesn't hand Jeremy a paper cup. He doesn't bring a styrofoam cylinder with a plastic sippy lid.
Right.
He brings a regular hot black coffee served in a thick glass mug, which is resting on a glass saucer, on a moving train.
That is wild. My immediate thought was, that is just an accident waiting to happen. If I have a train to catch or I'm traveling, I want the paper cup, I want the lid, I want efficiency. Give me the spill-proof option, you know?
Well, that's your modern transactional bias speaking.
Is it?
Yeah. We are conditioned to view everything in transit as disposable. You get your caffeine in a paper cup so you can quickly carry it back to your laptop, maybe you'd spill half of it on your shoe, and throw the cup in the trash. It's entirely about utility.
Okay, so what is the glass mug about then? Is it just stubborn tradition?
Look at what a glass mug and a saucer actually demands of the drinker. You cannot rush it. You cannot shove it into a backpack pocket.
Right, it forces you to slow down.
Exactly. It demands that you sit still. It demands that you balance the cup. It elevates the consumption of a basic beverage into a deliberate act. It signals a shift away from a culture of pure extraction and disposal toward a culture that values the experience of the moment, even when you're hurtling across the countryside at high speeds.
Wow.
It's an insistence on a baseline level of elegance. It reminds you that you are a human being enjoying a morning coffee, not just a parcel being shipped from Berlin to Warsaw.
That does totally reframe it. He's being forced to be present. But, of course, the quiet elegance of that glass mug gets violently interrupted. And this brings us to the dine and dash hustle, which is a brilliant case study in situational awareness.
Oh, this part is fascinating.
So he's sitting there at his table in the food car. He has his noise-canceling headphones on. He explicitly notes in the essay that the train car is mostly empty, like there are plenty of open tables. But suddenly, this upbeat, energetic young couple walks in and sits down directly across from him at his specific table.
Which, if we are analyzing the sociology of public spaces, is the very first blaring red flag.
Because there's no reason to sit there.
Right. If you walk into an empty waiting room, you do not sit right next to the only other person there. Spatial invasion without necessity implies an agenda.
I love how Jeremy handles this. Because of his filmmaking background, I pictured him using his noise-canceling headphones like a director's monitor.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
You know when a director is on set, they wear those heavy headphones watching the video monitor, completely insulated from the chatter of the crew, just observing the raw action of the scene? Jeremy does exactly that.
He's just watching them.
Yeah, he watches this couple. He sees them laughing, leaning in, scrolling through photos on their phones to show each other. He watches them flag down the chef, order food, grab bottled waters, but he hears none of it. It's playing out like a silent movie right in front of him.
And this is where his street smarts kick in. He recognizes almost instantly that this is a con.
Let me play devil's advocate here for a second, though. How does he know they aren't just overly friendly backpackers looking to share a table? Like, why jump straight to assuming it's a hustle?
It comes down to understanding the mechanics of social pressure and the psychology of the hustle, which Jeremy is clearly well-versed in.
Okay, how does it work?
Well, the con relies entirely on manufacturing a false consensus. The artists target a solo traveler, the mark. They invade the personal space, act overly familiar, and basically create a visual tableau for the waitstaff.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, to the chef standing 10 feet away, it looks like a cohesive group of 3 friends having lunch together.
So they are performing for the waiter, not actually for Jeremy.
Both, actually. They need the waiter to assume it's one party on one bill, and they need the mark to feel socially awkward about enforcing a boundary.
Which is so common. The human instinct is usually to politely smile and nod when someone sits down.
Exactly. But if you engage in that false camaraderie, you legitimize the illusion. Then, right before the train pulls into the final stop, the con artists abruptly stand up, act like they need to grab their bags, and slip off the train.
Leaving the waiter to hand the solo traveler the massive bill for all the food and drinks, which is exactly the play they run. One stop before Warsaw Central, they suddenly bounce.
But the con fails. Why?
Oh.
Because Jeremy refused to participate in the performance.
He never took the headphones off.
Never. He never offered a polite smile. He maintained a hard, silent boundary. So when the couple leaves, the illusion hasn't taken root.
So the staff realizes what happened.
Right. The chef and the waiter look at the empty seats. They look at the half-eaten food. They realize they've been had by the couple. But they do not even attempt to pin the check on Jeremy.
He pays for his single black coffee and walks off the train. It's incredible. He didn't have to cause a scene. He didn't have to confront them. He defeated the hustle simply by refusing to grant them an audience.
It's a masterclass in non-engagement. By trusting his gut and observing the mechanics of the situation, rather than getting swept up in the social pressure of it, he protected himself. It validates his intuition perfectly as he finally arrives in the city.
And what an arrival it is. He steps off the train at Warsaw Central, his wallet still intact. He grabs another coffee, uses the station Wi-Fi to map the walking route to his hostel, and climbs the stairs up to street level. And this is the moment the tone of the essay and his entire journey just shifts dramatically.
The visual impact.
Yeah. He emerges into the daylight and is immediately confronted by the overwhelming, towering visual history of the city.
He is standing face to face with the Palace of Culture and Science.
Yes. It is the very first thing that dominates his view. It's this massive, sprawling structure, a broad, heavy base with a colossal tower climbing straight up into the skyline. And you cannot look at this building without feeling the intense, heavy history attached to it.
No, you can't.
This was not a piece of civic architecture that the Polish people voted on. It was a quote-unquote gift forced upon them by Joseph Stalin.
It is the architectural embodiment of communist propaganda. We have to remember that under the Soviet regime, architecture wasn't just about shelter. It was a psychological weapon.
A weapon.
Yes, the sheer scale and brutalist weight of Stalinist architecture was mathematically designed to dwarf the individual. When you stand at the base of it, you are supposed to feel incredibly small, insignificant, and powerless compared to the monolithic glory of the state.
Wow.
For decades, it was one of the tallest buildings in Europe, casting a literal and metaphorical shadow over the daily lives of the citizens. It was a constant reminder, we are here and we are in control.
So, if I'm a Polish citizen in the 1990s, and the Iron Curtain has finally fallen, and my country is finally free from Soviet control, my first instinct is to get some dynamite. Like, tear it down, bring in the wrecking balls, and erase the trauma. Why would you keep a monument to your oppressor right in the middle of your downtown skyline? Jeremy notes that there were factions of people who wanted exactly that, to see it demolished.
What's fascinating here is the psychological pivot the city made instead.
How so?
Well, tearing it down would have been the easy reactionary choice. It would have created a void.
Yeah.
But the Polish response was far more complex and arguably far more powerful. They didn't destroy it, they conquered it through repurposing.
That is the ultimate beautiful snub of the nose. Jeremy describes walking around it and realizing what happens inside those walls today.
Well, it's completely transformed.
It houses massive multiplex cinemas. It holds 4 different theaters. It has university campuses. It contains museums and trendy cafes.
Think about the poetic justice of that. They took a structure designed to represent absolute, rigid authoritarian control, and they stuffed it full of everything that communist regimes traditionally fear and forbid.
Free thought, modern art, Western cinema.
Exactly. Academic debate and creative expression.
By keeping the shell but changing the soul of the building, they completely stripped Stalin of his power. It is no longer a Soviet building, it is a Warsaw building. Jeremy explicitly calls it a remarkable sight of freedom amidst the downtown skyline.
It isn't a shadow anymore, it's a trophy. And that realization perfectly frames his entire experience of the city's resilience.
It's a physical manifestation of a city taking control of its own narrative, which makes his walk from that monumental square to his accommodations all the more interesting because the narrative of his hostel completely subverts his expectations again.
Oh, this brings us back to the alcohol-free hostel from our introduction.
Yes. He walks away from the towering palace of culture, navigates the streets toward the Old Town area, and checks in. He's tired. He just wants to drop his bags. And the front desk attendant hits him with the house rules.
The famous house rules.
First, a strict noise curfew after 10 p.m. Okay, if you've stayed in hostels, that's fairly standard to keep the peace. But the second rule, an absolutely alcohol-free building. No bringing it in, no consuming it on the premises.
And you really have to place this in the geographical context. He is in Eastern Europe.
Right, and Jeremy is stunned. This is a region where beer and vodka aren't just casual beverages. They are practically an economic standard.
They are foundational pillars of the social culture.
Exactly. Warsaw is a city famous for nightly group pub crawls where tourists are handed free shots of local Polish vodka just for walking through the door. Yet here, right in the middle of it all, is this absolute sanctuary of sobriety.
It's a great reminder that no city is a monolith. Even in places dominated by a specific global stereotype, there are micro-communities carved out for entirely different purposes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
A traveler might assume every hostel in Warsaw is a party hostel. But Jeremy finds himself in a space dedicated to quiet and restraint.
And the quirks don't stop at the sobriety rule. He is booked on the 3rd floor. There is no elevator, which means he is hauling his luggage up the stairs every day. But the detail that really highlights a cultural gap is the bathroom situation. They are unisex.
Which, if we're honest, often triggers a lot of anxiety for American travelers.
Definitely.
In the States, public and semi-public spaces are heavily segregated by gender. And the idea of sharing a communal bathroom space across those lines can make people deeply uncomfortable. It violates a very ingrained sense of privacy boundaries.
I would definitely be hesitant. You imagine chaotic mornings, lack of privacy, awkward encounters in the hallway. But the way Jeremy describes it, the system functions flawlessly.
How's it set up?
It's a large community bathroom located on the 2nd floor. Men and women are sharing the overarching space, but there are private floor-to-ceiling locking stalls for the toilets and the showers. The sink and mirror stations are out in the open communal area. If the room gets too steamy from the showers, they just throw the large windows wide open to let the fresh air roll in.
It is essentially an exercise in social trust.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He notes that everyone just goes about their business. You brush your teeth next to a stranger, you give a polite head nod or a small wave, and you move on. There's no drama, no inappropriate behavior, just mutual respect and function.
The architecture of that space relies on the assumption that everyone will behave like mature adults. And because the expectation of respect is set by the environment, the occupants rise to it. It's a very grounding way to begin his stay.
He gets cleaned up in this very functional, respectful space and heads out into the city for his first night. He keeps it simple. He walks next door to a hamburger restaurant, orders a burger and a local beer, and takes a seat on the outdoor patio in the cool evening air.
A classic first night.
Yeah. And there's a moment in the essay here where time almost seems to stop for him. He's taking a bite of his dinner, sipping his beer, watching the pedestrians stroll by the street lamps, and the reality of his geography suddenly hits him. He is sitting in Eastern Europe.
He is sitting behind what used to be the Iron Curtain.
Yes, for an American of his generation who grew up during the height of the Cold War, this isn't just a simple geographical relocation, it is a temporal and political miracle.
It really is, if you think about it.
He reflects on the fact that in his youth, sitting casually on a street corner in Warsaw would have been practically impossible. Or if he somehow managed to get a visa, it would have been an experience fraught with intense surveillance, deep scrutiny, and underlying tension. You didn't just hang out in the Soviet bloc.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the act of a solo American tourist eating a hamburger on a patio in Warsaw is a profound geopolitical statement.
Absolutely.
For decades, the citizens of this city were locked behind a regime of extreme restriction. They couldn't leave, and outsiders couldn't easily come in. The world was starkly divided. The fact that those walls fell, the tension evaporated to the point where a guy from Arizona could just wander in, grab a beer, and peacefully watch the world go by. It is a monumental shift in human history.
Jeremy describes the feeling as deeply surreal. He is overcome by a moment of profound gratitude. He writes in the essay how much the world has changed. In this particular case, for the better. It isn't just a good burger, it's a taste of a healed world.
It grounds his entire perspective. He goes to sleep that first night with the weight of that history acknowledged.
So he wakes up the next morning, the historical context is set, and now he steps out to see how the city operates in the daylight. His very first logistical task of the day is getting cash.
The currency.
Yeah, he goes to a bank and realizes a key difference from his time in Amsterdam or Berlin. Warsaw doesn't casually operate on the euro. They want their own money, the Polish zloty. He hits the exchange counter and gets a rate of about 5 zloty to 1 euro, stuffing his wallet with local currency.
This might seem like a minor administrative detail, but it's vital. It roots him immediately in the local economy. He is no longer operating on the pan-European grid.
Right.
The fact that Poland retained its own currency, rather than fully adopting the euro, speaks to a desire to maintain economic sovereignty and national identity. He has to play by their mathematical rules now.
With his pocket full of zloty, he starts walking down a prominent street called Nowy Swiat.
Which translates to New World.
And this street is the main artery of the area. It is bustling, vibrant, filled with high-end shops, restaurants, and cafes. On the weekends, they even close it down to vehicular traffic, turning the whole avenue into a massive pedestrian promenade where people are walking dogs and rollerblading.
Sounds amazing.
But the name of the street New World and the physical bricks that make up the buildings around him serve as the focal point for what I think is the most important theme of this entire deep dive, the Phoenix metaphor.
This requires us to look back at the darkest chapter of the city's history. When we talk about Warsaw during World War II, we aren't just talking about a city that sustained collateral damage during battles. It was systematically, purposefully obliterated.
Jeremy makes sure to emphasize this in the text. He says, this is not exaggeration or hyperbole. This is historical fact. After the Warsaw Uprising in 1944, where the Polish resistance fiercely fought back against the occupying German forces, Adolf Hitler was so enraged that he ordered the entire city to be razed to the ground.
It was a terrifying act of architectural and cultural genocide. Special German demolition squads were sent block by block.
Block by block.
Yes. They burned the libraries, they dynamited the historical monuments, they leveled the homes. They wanted to erase the very concept of Warsaw from the map entirely. Over 85% of the historic center was reduced to absolute rubble.
Wait, hold on, though. If 85% of the city was completely turned to dust, how is Jeremy walking down a street lined with intricate, historic-looking architecture? How does the old town exist?
And that is the essence of the Phoenix. When the war ended, the surviving citizens returned to a wasteland.
Yeah.
The logical thing to do would have been to move the capital, to start over somewhere else. But they refused. They sifted through the rubble, they used old paintings, pre-war photographs, and architectural sketches to meticulously rebuild the old town and the surrounding streets exactly as they had been. They reconstructed their history from the ashes.
That level of psychological resilience is staggering. To stand in the ruins of your completely destroyed life and say, we will not let you erase us, we will rebuild every single brick, and we will call this street the New World.
As Jeremy beautifully summarizes it in his essay, here they fought, here they lost, here they won, here they rebuilt their city from the ground up. The entire city of Warsaw isn't just a collection of buildings, it is a living, breathing monument to resurrection.
Knowing that context makes his casual interactions with the locals there so much more poignant. He is ordering coffee from people whose parents or grandparents literally stack the bricks of the buildings they are standing in.
It adds so much weight to simple interactions.
It does. And as he starts chatting with the locals along Nowy Swiat, we get to see his brilliant method of cultural translation. They inevitably ask him the standard traveler question, where are you from? He answers, Arizona, in America.
And to a local in Warsaw, America is often just a massive generalized concept.
Exactly. The locals nod politely and say, America. Very nice. Is that near New York or California? Because those are the only two reference points that export globally.
Right, the coasts.
Now let's look at how most people would handle this. If someone asks me where Arizona is, I'm going to try to explain a map. I'll say, well, it's south of Utah, it's west of New Mexico, and east of California.
Which means absolutely nothing to someone who has never studied a map of the American Southwest. It's useless data.
Right, but Jeremy doesn't do that. He bypasses the cartography entirely and gives them a geographic touchstone that is universally understood. He says it is about a 5-hour drive to Disneyland in California.
That is incredibly shrewd. Because of the massive global reach of American pop culture, now remember, Jeremy cites figures like Walt Disney and Bob Iger as major influences in his own life. Disneyland isn't just a theme park. It is a fixed point on the global cultural grid.
Everyone knows it.
Everyone, everywhere, knows what and where Disneyland is.
But he takes it a step further. When the locals ask him, so what is Arizona actually like? He doesn't bore them with talk about the dry heat or the local economy or even the Grand Canyon. He dips into his background in filmmaking and storytelling. He asks them, have you ever seen a Western film with cowboys?
Notice the specificity there. He doesn't just say a Western, because that genre label might not translate clearly across language barriers.
Yeah.
He uses the archetype cowboys.
They nod excitedly. Yes, they have seen cowboy movies. And Jeremy smiles and says that that is Arizona.
I love that.
And he notes in the essay that the expression on their faces shifts to instant illumination. Suddenly, the cultural gap is entirely bridged. This solo traveler isn't just a guy from a nebulous, confusing state on a map. He is a guy from the land of the cowboys.
What's fascinating here is how he uses a shared visual language to foster an immediate human connection. He takes complex geography, climate, and culture and distills it down into a single, instantly recognizable cinematic symbol.
It's so effective.
He knows that human beings process the world through stories. By framing his home inside a story they already know, he makes himself familiar. It is a masterclass in effective communication.
And once he establishes that familiarity, the doors to the city just fly open for him. Having found that common ground, he dives headfirst into the social fabric of modern Warsaw. He leaves the main avenues and starts exploring the pedestrian paths along the Vistula River.
The riverfront.
Yeah, he finds this charming little bistro-style setup in a park. There are overhanging trees, a cool breeze coming off the water, and it's here that the locals really start opening up, giving him recommendations on what to experience next.
Naturally, the conversation turns to vodka.
It has to. They insist he try the local Polish vodka, and he does. He notes that the specific vodka they recommend at the River Bistro is good, smooth, perhaps a bit less potent than the aggressive spirits he encounters later in the trip, but he deeply respects the craft of it. He writes, Eastern Europeans know how to make a vodka. That's just a fact.
That'd be true.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Jeremy isn't just a vodka guy. He's exploring the whole spectrum of the nightlife. And his bar-hopping itinerary becomes this incredibly eclectic mix of experiences.
Oh, what's to go?
He finds a local craft brewery tucked away in a small corridor off Nowy Swiat called Pinto Warzawa. He is thrilled to discover that high-quality beer is incredibly affordable here, averaging about $4 to $5 for a massive 22 to 24-ounce pour. But as he scans the menu, his eyes lock onto a specialty brew. It's an 11% ABV smoky porter, and it costs about $12.
A premium, heavy-hitting craft beer. A significant investment compared to the rest of the menu.
He steps up to the bar to order it, and the female bartenders actually stop him. Before they pour a full glass and charge his card, they pour a small sample and hand it to him.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They want him to taste the smoky, heavy flavor profile first, just to make absolutely sure he actually likes it before he spends his money on it.
Think about the psychology of commerce there. In a highly tourist-trafficked area, the easiest thing for a bartender to do is ring up the most expensive item, take the money, and move on.
Right. If you don't like it, that's on you.
Exactly. If the tourist hates the drink, that's their problem. But offering a sample first speaks to a deeply ingrained culture of hospitality. They prioritize the patron's experience over the immediate financial transaction. They want him to be happy with what he's drinking.
And Jeremy is so touched by that honesty and care that he tips them generously before he leaves. It's this great little moment where human kindness actually drives better commerce.
It's a win-win.
From there, he rapid fires through some truly wild locations. He finds a bar that is packed to the walls, and the gimmick is that they serve literally nothing but cherry liquor.
The Unioka. It is a massive staple of Polish drinking culture.
Yeah.
Sweet, deceptive, and very strong.
Then he wanders into a place hosting a Ukrainian karaoke and trivia night. Now, keep in mind, Jeremy speaks 0 Ukrainian and 0 Polish. The trivia questions might as well be written in hieroglyphics.
I can only imagine.
But he ends up striking up a conversation with a girl there. Despite the total language barrier, he notes they have this instant captivating chemistry. They are laughing, gesturing, communicating entirely through vibe and expression.
It proves a fundamental truth about human interaction. So much of our connection is nonverbal. It is about energy, eye contact, tone of voice, and the willingness to just be silly in a shared space.
You just vibe.
Yeah, you don't need a shared dictionary to have a great time with someone.
And then he finds himself at perhaps the most surreal bar of the entire trip. He is sitting, having a casual drink, and he looks across the street at a massive ornate church. This is the Holy Cross Church, and it houses the literal heart of the legendary composer Frédéric Chopin.
That is a remarkable piece of history.
Wait, his actual heart?
Yes. Chopin lived much of his life in Paris, and his body is buried there at the Père Lachaise Cemetery. But he was fiercely, deeply Polish in his soul. On his deathbed, his dying wish was that his heart be returned to his homeland. So his sister literally smuggled his heart out of France, preserved in a crystal jar filled with cognac, hidden under her skirts, and brought it to Warsaw, where it was sealed into a pillar of that church.
That is wild. Having a casual pint of beer while looking at the final resting place of a smuggled cognac-soaked heart is, as Jeremy perfectly describes it, a bit macabre, but undeniably fascinating. It is the perfect blend of high dramatic history and casual modern nightlife.
And to help him mentally digest all this heavy history, from Stalinist towers to smuggled hearts, Jeremy makes a very strategic choice. He takes a walking tour of the Old Town. But the guide leading the tour isn't a Polish local. He is a transplant from the Netherlands.
Why does that matter? Shouldn't a local guide be better for local history?
In many cases, yes. But when you are dealing with history as traumatic, bloody, and emotionally devastating as the history of Warsaw, an outsider perspective can serve a vital function.
Because it's too close to home.
Exactly. The Dutch guide is deeply knowledgeable, but he delivers the facts with a slightly detached, humorous tone. He doesn't diminish the tragedy of the uprisings or the destruction, but his delivery makes the immense weight of that history digestible for a tourist.
I see.
If a local were delivering it with the raw, inherited grief of their ancestors, it might be too emotionally crushing for a casual walking tour. The outsider provides a buffer, allowing Jeremy to learn the facts without being overwhelmed by the sorrow.
That makes total sense. It allows him to absorb the past while remaining grounded in the present. And it is during one of these deep dives into the present social scene that a local Polish girl he's been chatting with asks him a question that leads to what I can only describe as a masterclass in cultural differences.
This is a pivotal, highly observant section of his essay. It requires us to look at social dynamics objectively.
Let's set the scene. Jeremy is talking with a local female friend or acquaintance. She is genuinely flattered by his presence in Warsaw. She realizes that for his first ever trip to Europe, he didn't default to the standard American bucket list.
No Paris or Rome.
Right. He didn't go to Paris to see the Eiffel Tower, or Rome to see the Colosseum, or the beaches of Greece. He deliberately chose to immerse himself in her city. He showed genuine curiosity about her home. And because of that mutual respect and connection, she asks him very casually if he has visited a local strip club yet.
And when he admits that he hasn't, her reaction is not shock or offense.
Not at all. She grabs his arm, visibly excited, and insists that she is going to take him to one to show him how it works in Warsaw. Now, the way Jeremy writes about this experience is fascinating. He doesn't write about it like a frat boy on a bender. He analyzes the entire encounter with this objective sociological fascination.
He really breaks it down.
He does. He explicitly outlines 4 distinct etiquette differences between the American club model and this Polish club model. And we need to walk through these because it is a profound study in agency, power dynamics, and social expectation.
Let's start with difference number 1, the physical placement of the dancers.
Okay, so in a typical American club, the dancers who aren't currently performing on the main stage are constantly in motion. They are roaming the floor, approaching tables, initiating physical contact, and actively hustling patrons for private dances. The culture expects them to be the aggressors in the sales dynamic.
But Jeremy notes that in Warsaw, the dynamic is entirely flipped. The girls who are not on the single stage do not roam. They sit along a designated wall, they wait. They will look at you, but they will not approach you until the patron explicitly waves them over.
That changes the whole dynamic of the room. It removes the aggressive, high-pressure sales tactic from the floor.
Exactly. It's just the burden of initiation onto the patron. The clubgoer must actively declare their interest. It creates a space based on explicit invitation rather than aggressive interruption.
And that leads directly into difference number 2, which is arguably the most surprising rule. Jeremy calls it the pseudo-date. So you wave a dancer over, she approaches, she sits with you, you are obligated to buy her a drink, and then you are required to converse with her.
This is where the transaction evolves from purely physical to highly social.
I was reading this section and it struck me like high-stakes speed dating or an improv comedy scene where you cannot drop the ball. If you just sit there silently staring, or if you lack basic social skills, nothing progresses.
You have to perform, essentially.
Right. Jeremy explicitly writes, if you have no personality and cannot carry on a conversation with the clubgoers, you might make less money that night. You are expected to be able to talk, to flirt, to drink, to dance, and to mentally seduce.
This raises an incredibly important question about the expectations placed on men in these environments.
How so?
In the standard American model, money often supersedes charm. If you have a stack of cash, your personality is largely irrelevant. The transaction happens. But in this Polish model, money only gets you the seat at the table. Your personality, your wit, and your ability to engage treat the dancer as a human being first. Your charm dictates the outcome of the experience.
Which brings us to differences 3 and 4. Moving the interaction to a private room is not an automatic guarantee just because you bought a drink. It is based entirely on mutual agreement after that conversation happens.
She has to consent.
She has to want to go back there with you. And once in the private room, there is no laminated menu of rigid house rules. The boundaries and the costs are casually verbally negotiated between the patron and the dancer beforehand.
Look at how much agency that structure grants the dancer. It elevates her from a passive service provider bound by management's rules into an active, empowered negotiator. She holds immense power in deciding what happens, with whom it happens, and under what specific conditions.
Jeremy details his specific encounter to illustrate this. He waves over a young 20-something Polish dancer. She comes over, sits on his lap, and they exchange the typical pleasantries. She speaks English, and she is an absolute ball of kinetic energy. She sits, she lays back, she bounces, she throws her legs over him, all while maintaining a very firm, controlling physical grasp on him.
And yet, amidst this highly physical, deliberately provocative interaction, what is the core of their time together? It's banter.
Yes. She playfully claims him as her American boyfriend. They get into this hilarious rapid-fire bit where they decide that they might actually both be vampires and that her biting him right then and there would be a highly welcome treat. They are just riffing. They are playing a verbal game.
What stands out to me most in this section is Jeremy's profound respect for these women.
He doesn't judge them at all.
No, he isn't looking down on the profession. He is analyzing their required skill set through his own lens of performance art and human psychology. He realizes the sheer mental gymnastics required to do this job well.
It's not easy.
Right. He notes that to succeed in this specific environment, these women must possess a complex triad. They need the full package of femininity, seduction, and strength.
He even makes a joke that Eastern European women would make phenomenal international spies because of this exact skill set.
It's a humorous analogy, but it is rooted in deep admiration for their emotional intelligence. Think about it. A spy needs to read a mark, control a conversation, extract information, project absolute confidence, and maintain physical control of a situation, all while making the target feel like they are the most important person in the room.
That's spot on.
He appreciates the high-level performance and the genuine human connection embedded within the illusion.
And the local girl who brought him there in the first place. Jeremy notes she disappears shortly after they arrive. He suspects she felt she had successfully done her part as an ambassador of local culture, introduced him to the scene, and then just bowed out to let him enjoy the incredible experience she facilitated.
That's a true friend right there.
Honestly, it's a wildly different, deeply memorable night that shatters all his preconceived notions of what that environment would be.
And this serves as a massive thematic pivot in the essay. Because from the neon lights, the cherry liquor, and the intense, high-energy social dynamics of the nightlife, Jeremy's journey shifts toward two very different, much quieter, but equally powerful monuments of Polish identity.
We are moving from the secular to the sacred and then to the symbolic. Let's start with the Monument of Faith. He takes a bus south of the city center to visit the massive church and museum dedicated to Pope John Paul II.
To understand Poland, you really have to understand Pope John Paul II. He is arguably one of the most significant figures in modern Polish history.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. A Polish pope who ascended to the papacy during the height of the Cold War. He played a massive, undeniable, and highly strategic role in the spiritual and political resistance against communism. His visits back to his homeland sparked the Solidarity movement. He gave the people the spiritual cover to demand their freedom.
But Jeremy's connection to this site isn't just about reading plaques and appreciating global history. It is deeply, intensely personal. He reveals a detail in the essay that completely reframes the visit.
I love this part.
In the late 1980s, Pope John Paul II made a tour of the United States, which included a visit to Phoenix, Arizona. And Jeremy's father worked on the Secret Service detail that was assigned to physically protect the Pope during that visit.
We connect this to the bigger picture. This is a stunning moment of historical convergence. Think about the layers here. You have Jeremy, a solo traveler, walking through a museum in South Warsaw. He is looking at artifacts dedicated to a man who literally helped free the nation of Poland from communist rule.
Right.
And as he stands there, he knows that decades ago, his own father stood guard, putting his life on the line to protect that exact same man back in the American desert.
It collapses the distance between global history and family history. It takes this grand narrative of the Cold War and makes it intensely intimate. It proves how interconnected the world really is.
From that quiet, deeply reflective space, his journey takes a sharp turn into what becomes an absolute comedic epic to reach his final symbolic destination, the First Warsaw Country Club.
Oh, the journey to the golf course is an adventure all its own. It is a comedy of errors that turns into a triumph of sheer will. The golf course is located way out on the northeast outskirts of the city, far from the easy transit lines at the center.
It's a trek.
A huge trek. Jeremy takes multiple buses and trains to get out there. He has tentative plans to meet a local female photographer at the course for a collaborative photo shoot. He finally reaches a rural intersection. He's standing on the curb at a remote bus stop, waiting for the final connecting bus that will take him up to the club. He sees the bus approaching, and the bus just drives right past him.
Doesn't even stop.
Doesn't slow down. The driver doesn't look at him. It just blows past him in a cloud of dust.
And out in the rural areas, the transit schedule isn't like downtown. The next bus isn't coming for an entire hour.
Right. Now, here is where modern convenience usually wins. Jeremy mentions in the text that he has a burner phone. He has data. He could easily just open an app and call a rideshare to drive him the last few miles.
But he refuses to do it.
He absolutely refuses. He writes that calling a private car would defeat the entire purpose of experiencing life the way the locals do. So what is his solution? He walks for an hour.
Wow.
He starts hiking along the road, following the bus route. He eventually takes shortcuts through residential neighborhoods. He hikes through an open field. He literally has to jump over a fence and then hikes across the perimeter of the actual golf course until he finally reaches the pro shop, covered in sweat.
It seems like that enduring, stubborn Phoenix spirit of the city is rubbing off on him.
Totally.
But it is vital to understand why reaching this specific destination, a golf course, is so historically significant. We need to look at the symbolism of the First Warsaw Country Club.
Because to the uninformed eye, it's just a place to hit a ball with a stick. But in the context of Poland, it is a political statement. The communists absolutely hated golf.
Hated it. To the Soviet regime, a sprawling, manicured golf course was the ultimate decadent symbol of Western capitalism.
Interesting.
It represented everything their ideology sought to crush.
Yeah.
Individual leisure, personal achievement, social exclusivity, and the private ownership of massive tracts of land simply for recreation. The regime would absolutely never allow a golf course to exist in occupied Poland. It was ideological poison to them.
So the very creation of this course in the early 1990s, shortly after the communists were kicked out of power, was a literal teeing off to freedom. Building an 18-hole course was a massive, green, unapologetic celebration of their newfound independence and their embrace of the Western world.
And Jeremy arrives at this bastion of capitalist freedom exhausted, having just vaulted over a fence only to check his phone and realize the photographer ghosted him. She never showed up for the shoot.
Which he takes totally in stride. He doesn't get angry. He wryly blames it on artsy people and time, and decides to pivot. He takes the cash he had set aside to pay for the photo shoot, buys himself a solid lunch and a few cold beers, and ends up having this incredible impromptu conversation with the actual owner of the country club.
This is a moment where Jeremy's professional identity, the AI, risk management, and governance leader, steps into the foreground. When you get two leaders at a table, they don't just make small talk about the weather, they talk about the mechanics of the world.
They sit down, they light up cigars, and they dive right in. They talk local politics, they talk about the global economy, and most importantly, they discuss the universal difficulties of managing people.
It's a universal struggle.
Yeah, Jeremy describes the club owner as a man of highly direct conversation. He is someone who says exactly what needs to be said with no fluff and nothing more. It is a very matter-of-fact, deeply pleasant exchange of ideas over drinks.
It's a beautiful moment of peer-to-peer connection that entirely transcends nationality. A club owner in Warsaw and an AI professional from Arizona connecting over the shared, universal challenges of leadership and human nature. It grounds him before he actually has to hit the links.
And the game itself, it is a hilarious struggle. Think about the physical state he is in. First, he just hiked for an hour and jumped a fence, so his legs are tired. Second, he doesn't have his own golf glove, so his grip is compromised. Third, he's using rented club equipment. Any golfer listening knows that swinging unfamiliar, rented clubs completely throws off your muscle memory.
But the most challenging obstacle isn't physical, it's mathematical.
The metric system, the entire course, every hole, every fairway is measured in meters, not yards. Jeremy is an American who thinks in yards, so he is standing at the tee box, staring down the fairway, trying to do complex mental math on the fly.
That sounds stressful.
It is. He's trying to multiply by 1.1 or divide distances just to figure out which iron to pull out of his bag, because his intuition for distance is completely useless here.
Which serves as the ultimate metaphor for this entire travel experience, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
You show up, you have the basic tools, you know the objective of the game, but the measurements by which you judge reality are entirely foreign. The familiar formulas don't work. At some point, you just have to stop calculating, swing the club, and see where the ball lands.
He struggles through the game, making mistakes, but he absolutely loves the challenge of it. He embraces the friction. He even notes in the essay that the next time he plays this course, he knows for a fact he will shoot a much better game because he's learned the terrain.
He's adapted.
Yes. He returns the rented clubs, buys a bottle of water, walks back down to the road, and catches the bus back to the city, which, ironically, arrives right on schedule this time. He easily navigates his way back to the center of town.
The frantic energy of the arrival is gone. His trip is winding down. He has found his rhythm in the city. The foreign has become familiar.
He spends his final evening relaxing at a hotel out near the Chopin airport, preparing for his departure. He has dinner and drinks at the hotel bar, sharing the evening with a local woman. And once again, circling back to his experience at the karaoke bar, they manage to connect perfectly, sharing laughs and stories despite the persistent language barrier.
It's a nice way to end it.
It is a quiet, peaceful ending that perfectly caps off a deeply immersive, chaotic, beautiful adventure.
It is a masterful arc. From the anxiety of the broken app in Berlin to the quiet confidence of a shared drink at the airport.
It really is. We spent the last hour watching Jeremy methodically uncover the layers of a city that fundamentally refused to die. If there is one overarching takeaway from Warsaw, it is undeniably the Phoenix.
Definitely.
This is a city that was reduced to rubble by the Nazis, forced to endure the impressive concrete shadow of Soviet communism for decades, and yet it chose to rise from its own ashes.
They rebuilt the old town to look centuries old, honoring their ancestors. They took Stalin's imposing architectural propaganda and defiantly filled it with cinemas, art students, and free thought. They built a sprawling golf course as a green monument to capitalism and leisure, right in the face of the regime that hated it.
And Jeremy navigated this massive historical landscape not by adhering to a rigid itinerary, but by relying on genuine human connection. He found common ground by talking about cowboy movies. He earned respect by tipping for a sample of craft beer.
He embraced the complex agency and banter of a foreign strip club, and he talked leadership strategy over cigars with a man who built a business out of post-communist freedom.
Which brings us to the core philosophical takeaway of this entire essay, and really the reason we do these deep dives.
Let's hear it.
So, what does this all mean for the person listening to us right now?
It means we have to redefine what travel actually is. True travel is not just about moving your physical body to a new geographical location so you can look at old buildings and take photos to prove you were there.
Right, it's more than that.
True travel is an active, aggressive exercise in the when in Rome philosophy. Think about your daily life. You rely on routines, you are on autopilot. But when you are entirely removed from your daily context, when the railway app breaks, when the language is a mystery, when you have to calculate distance in meters instead of yards, and when the social rules of the room are entirely flipped, you can no longer rely on your autopilot.
You're forced to wake up.
You have to wake up. You have to rely on your own street smarts, your empathy, your intuition, and your charm. You have to be profoundly present in the moment.
You cannot just observe. You have to engage.
Exactly. And this raises a vital thought I want to leave you with today. Consider your own life. Consider how deeply entrenched you are in your own routines, your own expectations, your own perfectly plotted GPS lines. Perhaps putting yourself in entirely foreign environments where you don't know the rules and you don't speak the language might be exactly the crucible you need.
A way to reset.
Yes. Perhaps losing your bearings, failing to communicate, and struggling to adapt is the only way to effectively shed your old habits. Maybe, just like the city of Warsaw itself, stepping completely into the unknown and letting the old structures crumble is exactly how you find the freedom and the strength to rebuild yourself entirely fresh from the ground up.
Remember how we started this deep dive? We talked about the pristine itinerary, the perfect map, the desire for everything to be under our absolute control. Jeremy's journey through Warsaw proves that the magic of life rarely happens when the map works perfectly. The magic happens when the map breaks, the app fails, the bus drives right past you, and you are forced to jump the fence and take the swing anyway. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into Jeremy Brunansky's incredible essay. I hope you carry that enduring, fighting phoenix spirit into your own week. Go out there, go break your map. We'll catch you next time.